There seems to be a growing interest in hardware trackers lately, and after getting my hands on the Polyend tracker back there about a month ago, I can certainly understand the hype. Not only do they completely take you out of more mainstream sequencing workflows, and I'm including both DAWs and hardware here, but they're also deceptively fast, versatile, and despite looking like an Excel spreadsheet, they're actually fun as hell. In this video, I'm going to tell you 5 things that to me make the Polyend tracker sequencing workflow earn a seat at the big boy table along with other heavy hitters like the Elektron boxes, Novation circuits, and the deluges of the world. If you're already a subscriber, huge welcome back. If this is your first time here, hi, welcome to the midlifesynthesist. Let's get started. Before we start, a small disclaimer for full transparency. I've been looking for a long time for a hardware tracker like the Polyend tracker or the Dirty Wave M8. Mate. I guess it's called Mate. Thing is, no one sells them where I live, so it seems like it just wasn't in the cards for me. Just when I was about to lose hope, Polyend actually reached out to me and they offered to send me a unit. And for Christmas no less. So the disclaimer here is this: even though Polyend did send me the unit, they have absolutely no say on what I do in this video, and they don't see it before you do. Though this video does focus on a few things that I love about it, beware that the tracker, like all gear, has a few flaws and bugs that I will not get into here until I make my final long-term review. With that said, step effects and rendering. I think that the way that Polyend came up with the tracker is that they grabbed an Elektron Digitakt and an SP404. They put them in a room with dim lights, put some Barry White on, and gave them a few Jägermeisters, and bam! 9 months later, a tracker was born. It might sound funny, but I only say that because this thing has 2 of my favorite workflow features from each of those devices merged here with spectacular results. First is the Elektron way of sequencing, which lately I've learned that apparently has always been the tracker way of sequencing, where each step can be a completely different instrument or sample, and you can assign individual effects as well as effects values to each step. As opposed to the Digitakt though, here you are only limited to only 2 effects per step. However, in order to compensate for this limitation, they streamlined the resampling method from the SP404 workflow by making it possible to render or resample a step or a group of steps into a new sample and immediately load it into the project for further tweaking and mangling. Since the Polyend tracker is monophonic, rendering groups of steps in multiple tracks into a single sample comes in especially handy since you can easily create entire chords and compress them into a single step that occupies just one track. It's a great way of really expanding the possibilities of what you can do in what at first glance might seem like a pretty constrained canvas. Preview mode. This is one of those things that once you've experienced it, it's hard to understand why it doesn't come as standard in most sequencing or groove boxes. One of the things that sometimes puts the hard in hardware music making, yeah, baby, is when you want to fix or change a note or effect somewhere in the middle or end of a pattern you're working on. In Elektron boxes, for example, you have to listen to the entire pattern over and over to try to catch these details. Of course, you can always preview the sound of a step you're editing, but to hear it in context, you need to be patient and wait for the whole thing to just cycle through. In long patterns, this can be especially frustrating. MPZs, on the other hand, do allow you to set the start point anywhere on your grid, but you have to manually set that start point every time you want to listen to that segment, which isn't ideal either. The Polyend tracker gives you a pretty elegant solution to this problem. Just like the MPC, you can set the start point anywhere in the pattern by hitting Shift Play, and then Bob's your uncle. Where they go the extra mile though is the ability to highlight specific parts of your pattern and preview only that part. This might be one of the single most important aspects that have made my workflow on the tracker not only fast, but extremely precise, as it gives you surgical precision to tweak, preview, and try again without having to listen to your whole pattern over and over. The only other groovebox that I've used that does something similar to this is the Deluge, with the caveat that you can only see the notes in the one track that you're editing while cycling through, whereas on the tracker you can see all 8 tracks at once if you so choose. And that brings me to superpower number 3. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a second to click that like button, because it gives a little adrenaline rush to the algorithm, and it really seems to like that. Also, if you want to help support this channel so I can keep making more content like this, when you want to buy some music gear, consider doing it using one of my affiliate links, or check out my Patreon page down below and join the family. Really hope to see you there. Pattern views. One thing that has always bugged me about hardware sequencing versus DAWs is that you are normally restricted to viewing only the notes or effects of the one track that you're editing, or view all the tracks at the same time, but as clips, ergo losing sight of the specific notes and effects being played on each track, making it harder to pick out specific points of each track within the general context. Once again, this makes correcting mistakes and modifying your songs a bit more tedious, as you can choose to either see the forest or the trees, but you can't see both as you would in Session View in Ableton, for example. The Polyend Tracker's huge screen comes with the benefit of giving you the option of seeing either 4 tracks with all of their step parameters, or seeing all 8 tracks with one parameter of your choosing, which might be either the note, the instrument, or one of the 2 effects. The end result here is that you're always aware of what's going on, both in each individual track as well as in the general context of the composition as a whole, which gives you an amazing control over everything it is that you're doing at all times. I should clarify though that this does not mean that there are no happy accidents on it, far from it. So not only do you discover some great audio nuggets along the way, it's also much easier to learn how to make them happen again later on. User interface. At this point, I've said it so many times that it's become the unofficial mantra of this channel, but I'll say it again. A groovebox or a synth can sound amazing and be extremely powerful, but if the user interface sucks, the groovebox or the synth sucks. It's all about the fluidity, the intuitiveness, the muscle memory, and if I'm being completely honest, even though I did think that the track could look very pretty, I was dubious at first, to say the least, as to how intuitive it would feel in actual use, with it having a total lack of knobs or a conventional note grid, and what I thought, at the time, would be less than enough physical buttons. I'm happy to say that I couldn't have been more wrong. The few buttons it does have are all the buttons it really needs, and it lends itself to muscle memory kicking in extremely fast. Before you know it, you're not even looking at the buttons themselves and you're just working with your eyes glued to the screen. If you've ever used a computer keyboard and are able to type a few words without looking at the keyboard, you're in for a ride with this one. If not, don't worry. Everything is clearly labeled and the screen gives you all the cues you need to know what's going on at all times. I'd put the learning curve of the Polyend Tracker somewhere next to the SP404, meaning that it is extremely easy to get up and running, but deep enough to always be interesting and to keep the smiles coming. Number 5. Good old Uncle Phil. You know how some synths have that option to randomize all parameters, so you get this brand new patch every time and that gives you a nice building block to start from? Well, this is kind of like that, but for sequencers. On steroids. The fill feature lets you populate your tracks quickly and effortlessly. It's especially useful when you want to lay down a kick or a clap in a long sequence. The cool thing is, you can choose to do this either in an extremely controlled fashion, deciding which steps will be populated with what instrument, note, or effect, or just go the other way around and completely randomize everything in the track and just let fate decide which way your song is headed. It's a great feature to have, and it's a pretty good cure for writer's block, especially when inspiration isn't quite hitting you just at that moment. But it does help move things along and gets you inspired with new ideas that you might not have come up with on your own, both for melodies and for drums. So kudos to Polyend on that one, because I don't think I've seen this feature on any other groovebox that I own. Okay, so even though the title says 5, I'm gonna give you one more because, you know, we're on a roll here. The auto naming feature. Now this last one might seem like a small thing, and maybe it is, but this should really come as standard on every machine that generates samples or synth presets from now on. I would be truly ashamed to show you my Octratrack sample library, because most of my sample and project title names are either a string of numbers automatically generated by the machine, or if I'm feeling creative, classics like Jam 1, Chill Jam, Ambient Jam, you know, really original stuff. On the tracker, with just the push of a button, it automatically creates original, sometimes hilarious, sometimes disturbing word combinations. It's a really simple thing, but it has saved me loads of time and neuron fatigue by not having to come up with original names for every single sample or song. It just gives you a name so you can move on with your life and get on to making music again. And as my boy Ricky Tinez said once, please, let's agree to make this a standard on all music boxes and synths from now on. Can we make it happen? You know, for the children?
Please think of the children!
Anyway, I'll keep exploring the tracker in the months to come, so let me know if there's anything you want to know about it, or if you want more updates on how I've integrated it into my workflow. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, or at least entertaining. Have an awesome week. I'll see you in the next one.